mostly prepared by Noel and his colleagues. So I'm just presenting information which was created by other colleagues, and I'm very grateful, Noel, that you did this and spend time in preparation for the network. To you NCA colleagues, thanks for joining, thanks for spending time, and I hope that we can give you proper information to utilize this new opportunity that we get with the Unicom DADI artifacts here. Noel, please, next slide.
Yes. Also, I would say welcome from my side.
Oh, yes,
I will
please.
already say hello shortly. I hope I will give you at least some additional information today. And this was made during a time where many people are already on vacation, including myself. I'm not here at all. I should be with my kid, and who was born 3 days ago. So I tried to give as much information as possible, and I think it is very valuable time that we meet as member states, because it has been a while and we don't have many meetings. So I wanted to do this, and I think I can still give you a very good overview, and whatever we will not be able to do, I will take with me, and we can organize another one. So thank you, Georg, and Georg will give us an introduction.
Okay, thanks, Noel, for saying this. I didn't want to mention it, but really thanks a lot for doing this in parallel to this new adventure that you started this week. Noel, I'm not so sure, shall we introduce ourselves? I'm not so sure if everyone knows you and myself, so I think we do that. So my name is Georg Neubert. I'm head of IT of the Austrian Medicines Agency, working a lot in European initiatives, and I'm leading the work package number 3 in Unicom, which is responsible to contribute to the DADI project. And to be honest, we triggered the DADI project from Unicom, and I'm so much impressed about the collaboration we have between EMA and the Unicom consortium in this topic. Noel, please.
Yes, so we've been doing, I think, network projects forever now. Georg and I are involved in in nearly every endeavor. Georg has even been doing this longer than me. I've been there for 12, 13 years now. From any kind of project now. So now we are doing the application forms as a joint project with EMA. EMA is developing, network is giving some input. I'm product owner there. And as part of this, we are doing new application forms and the XML backbone. So we are trying to introduce FHIR based on the Horizon 2020 that Unicom was founded. And in this call today, I believe we have the people, I think even everybody who is working on the FHIR XML for variations and for products. So we have a lot of expertise here. We can go into detail. I'm going to say introducing Rick, who is our FHIR expert and is joining today. He's from N-Program and HL7, so giving us mostly the expertise on mapping and where should we map what and which resources to use. We have Luis here today, who is our hands-on developer, so the person actually writing the code to create the FHIR message. And we have Andre here, who is the architect of doing, of telling us how the structure of the data should look like, interpreting Idmp, drawing the models, and myself, who is trying to give the business perspective, bringing people together, and doing the variation forms, plus the FHIR there.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. Thank you, everybody, for joining.
Thank you. And I think we should also mention Luke, who helped us in organizing this together with EMA colleagues. So thanks, Luke. If maybe you want to say one sentence. You are mute, Luke.
Sorry. Yes, thank you, Georg. So yes, indeed, in the name of the dissemination work package of Unicom, I'm really happy that we today have a wide representation of European member states. As within Unicom now, we really want to try to make more efforts in trying to spread the good word, if I can say so, further, and to try to involve as much as possible the agencies which are not necessarily directly involved in the daily work within Unicom. But I think it's really time for us to spend more time to share what we have been developing, especially now that we are approaching really the critical testing phase of what we have developed. So thank you very much for everybody to be here today. And thanks to Georg and Noel for preparing this.
Thanks, Luke. So now we go into medias res, and I think I skip explaining the agenda. Just to summarize, we will have a soft start with some introduction and motivation, what this is about from myself. And then Noel really goes into details, and we have plenty of time at the end for discussion, open questions. And if needed, of course, brainstorming if more specific meetings will be necessary as follow-ups of this workshop. Next slide, please. So I need to do one marketing minute for our agency. So we are from the Austrian Medicines Agency. We are one of 11 NCA partners in the Unicom consortium. In the work package 3, 7 of them are working together, collaborating on application form topics. Ourselves, we are a division of, let's say, a bigger limited company owned by the Austrian Republic. 350 full-time equivalents are working with us, so we are supporting them with IT services and hopeful good IT functionalities. And in parallel to this limited company, we also run a federal office for safety and healthcare, which is, let's say, the official legal part who gives authorizations to the marketing authorization holders. We do medicines, but also medical devices, clinical trials. So we have a broad range of tasks. Thank you. Next one, please. So introducing DADI and Unicom Work Package 3. So the initial trigger why we started working in Unicom on that is that we need to replace the PDF technology in the application forms. As you might be aware, I'm chair of the application forms maintenance group, and we run out of, or we are at the end of technology with the PDF form server. So there's a technical need in parallel to the need that we introduce Idmp to European business processes. So these needs together was, let's say, the trigger to create a work package in Unicom consortium. We got financial resources now and have now a good collaboration with EMA together, who is the development partner in setting up the new web tool, replacing the old PDF form. This is done in collaboration with EMA as a development partner, but also with the Spanish colleagues who, for example, provide the representation of application forms in PDF again. But please don't be confused. The outcome will be a PDF again, but the input will be a web tool. So in difference to today, there's no PDF form where you type in data. This will be done in future with the web tool created by the DADI project from EMA. So what we are covering are all form types. Today in this workshop, we focus on the variation form because this is the first form we started with development. The next one will be the new application form. I think all of that stuff is already in the brain of Noel and very much already in the architecture and concepts of the variation form. But the first go live will be the variation form, followed by the initial application form, and the last one will be the renewal form, which in our plans is just a copy paste of all what we did before. Today, we will not go into timetables and timelines. There was another webinar, I think, this week, and there's information on EMA's website. So if you want details about timelines and scopes of go lives, then please consult those resources. So in essence, what is DADI doing? DADI will change the current PDF input form with a new web tool, which I think is a real step forward in digitalization of the network. And this is done for the human domain, but also for the veterinary domain. We started with the human domain because the veterinary domain was so much, let's say, distracted with the implementation of the VMP regulation that we said, okay, then let's start with human only. But of course, we, in our backbone, we also have the vet domain. Just to mention here, Unicom only finances the human effort. Of course, if there are synergies with veterinary, we can do that, but the veterinary domain is not financed by Unicom. Yes, what DADI will not change, DADI will not change the current PDF output. So we are obliged that the, let's say, the human readable output looks like the current form. So this is a design defined by the and notice the applicants group from the Commission or from EMA. And so the Spanish colleagues are really trying hard that although we do this via a web tool, the output looks like the same as today. The human readable output. The technically readable output will change from the current very proprietary DES format, we call it DES, towards the Idmp compatible format represented in a FHIR message. And we will see this later in a live demo. Next one, please. Yes, please notice the disclaimer. Some motivations and business cases and lessons learned from our agency. And I really would like to do real marketing that you use this opportunity to extract data from the application form and automatically import this into your IT system. So I can say in our Austrian agency, we are doing this since 2000. I would need to ask Noel and Sonia. I think right from the start, 2013, correct?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, yeah. And we have so good experience that we replaced real stupid typing work with some framework how to realize an automatic data import. There's also a real business case if you talk about money. So I can remember that we could save real human resources. So they're still in our agency, but now they're doing different things instead of a stupid typing out and typing in of data. So what the manual import has as a contra, it's time consuming and a real administrative burden. Of course, if people do typing, it's error prone. And if you think about Idmp and all the sport terms that we have to use, think about typing term IDs or selecting the real correct value from a list. So I'm pretty sure it will not work in a manual way without any errors. And third topic is the manual typing will even become more complex in the future because the Idmp structure is pretty complex. There are trees, branches, and leaves, and it's not so easy to really do the Idmp structure. It's easy. It's time consuming. It's effort. So it's much easier when this is done by machines. So the automated import will enable you to minimize this administrative effort. I wouldn't say you will get rid of administrative effort. There are still some steps where people need to do decisions, but it will really minimize the effort. No manual typing means no errors. A part IT didn't do a good job and has a wrong mapping, then of course errors are possible. And via this extraction and the import job, it's not a problem that the Idmp structures are more complex because it's done by the machine. So it also takes away fear of complexity caused by the detailed representation of medicinal products according to Idmp standards. Next one, please. I just would like to show you how this looks like in our agency, so give you some kind of impression. And I took this from a workshop and training that we did for the Swedish agency years ago. So maybe you recognize this if we have here Swedish colleagues. So we receive application forms via different channels. We have the CESP submissions, thanks to Ireland. We have submissions that we download from the common repository, or we have other triggers. And what is done is that the system, via automatic input channels or user actions, gets the PDF, the EF PDF form. Then our system extracts the application form backbone, which is today the DES format, in the future it's the FHIR format, and evaluates the content of this. And for the variation form, one of the first steps is to identify which Austrian products are concerned in this application. So no one needs to see, this is my local product, which is in this application form. This is done via an automatism. Also, if there are products that are in the form, but we don't know that, but this shouldn't happen with PMS anymore in the future, but in the current situation, it might happen. So there are also some features that the system informs about, let's say, inconsistent product data. Then the expert confirms, and you can see the message here. I'm sorry, it's English, it's in German, but it should only give an impression. And starts the workflow in our IT system. While starting this workflow, the system extracts data. Next slide, please. And imports the data into certain fields of our case management tool. So this is the reduction of administrative burden. All the fields that we decided that we want in our case management tool. So we do not import all data fields from the application form into our case management tool because there's no business use case or no business need. So only some of the fields are mapped to our system, and those fields are automatically extracted. The system also imports organizations like manufacturers. So we have a very complete organizations overview because it's no effort for us to maintain the manufacturers, for example. There are some lovely features like recognition of duplicates, etc. So you can, it's not artificial intelligence, but you can make it very intelligent to reduce your effort in maintaining data. Also, if, for example, there are some terms in the form that we do not have in our system, like a new RMS term, people get a notification so that we can maintain our terminology catalog to stay compatible with EMA. And this was only to show you it really works and it's really useful. And so really step onto this train and utilize this opportunity of optimized data exchange. Next slide, please. And I think, yes, and I think this was my part. I hand over to Noel. And Noel, please go on with more detailed information.
Thank you, Georg, for the motivation and the introduction. I will try to take over the content part where we go a little bit into the file message itself.
There is just one question in the chat, maybe before you start,
yes.
Georg, from Svab, saying there are more EAF files in submission. How you recognize the right one for next processing?
Yeah, this is done by manual selection. If there are more, our business experts in the check-in chooses the correct one. So we didn't automate this selection because, yeah, we could, but we didn't.
All right. If there are any other questions, I would ask you to raise your hand. I will stop every now and then to look at the raised hands and the chat, and we'll try to answer the questions right away. so we don't forget them all at the end. So feel free to ask questions. Please also really use the expertise that we have today in the call. And if you have any question at all, think about it and pose it here. We have the time. So for now, if you don't have questions yet, and you do want to import this, I want to show you the best way forward of where to start. So I know of about six or seven NCAs I have talked to in the past that want to import this data. I have not had too much contact with other NCAs, unfortunately. We are just the ones in the Unicum work package that I know of, but of course there are a lot of others, and I'm very happy that many of them are joining here today.
The Spanish colleagues are importing and are joining today, I've seen.
Right, now I want to give just a short demo on where to start. How do you actually get one of those FHIR messages, and what you can do yourself? Because if you are part of an NCA, what you can do is you can register for the UT environment of our new EF portal already, which will lead you to this Welcome to the EF portal page. And we're still working on this. It's not live yet. Also, the UT will start in September, so this is still a little bit under development, but the FHIR export is there. So if you want to register for this, thank you, Harald, for your question. Please go to register.ema.europa.eu and register. But actually, I'm assuming that all of the NCAs already have an admin account for EMA. If you do not, it is the EMA, well, the EF/IRIS admin account. If you do not talk, I would please ask you to mute yourself. I will mute this now. Thank you. So if you get an admin account if you already have one for IRIS today, it means you can also approve your own access to the EF portal. If you don't have an IRIS account, get an admin account with EMA, say that you're an NCA, you need to provide some documentation, and then log in here and ask for an EF role. So you can click here on Manage My Access, and then you look for EF, for example. You will find a couple of things. They are split into live roles and UAT roles. You want to have a UAT one. And the role I would recommend is either a coordinator or a manager. You can pick one. They both give you enough access to test the system. And they will give you access to all SPOR products, so P products from PMS that we have currently loaded in the system. It's about a fifth of them. We can't constantly do reloads, but I'm sure that you will see some of those. They are filtered by your country, so you can only see products that are authorized in your country, and only a fifth of them. But it doesn't really matter. I hope you will find at least some of these products, because all you want to do is add them to your application form and export to FHIR. So pick one of those rules, and your admin can authorize them, so you don't even have to go to EMA. Once you have that, log into the portal. The link is in the presentation that we will send out. You click on sign in, or if you're already signed in because this is single sign-on, you click on application forms, and you most likely don't have any, but you will just create a new application form, which I will show you briefly. If you already have them, you can click on one of them and click on export. And you can do this over and over. You can just create one application form and add products, remove products, test how you want this. So for now, we only have the variation form for human. You select this one. You select your own organization. In this case, it would be your NCA. I only use UAT organizations for testing. You give it, I don't know, NCA test, a name, it doesn't really matter. You create your form. If you want to work together with a colleague from your company who is also registered, you can now add them. So you can click on add co-author and I don't know, add Georg or add me or add one of somebody from your own company. So you can share the form with them. They don't have to create one themselves. And if you click on next, what will happen? It brings you to the new form where you have the product selection, the scope selection, the generated procedural information, and the proposed changes. This is the variation form. This is the sponsor viewpoint, correct, Harold? And once you click on export beneath here, you will get the PDF that you know today. But the applicant, so the pharmaceutical industry, for example, will get this view. But you can test this from a role that looks like an applicant. So you play applicant for yourself. Usually you don't do applications as an NCA, you only receive them. But in order to test this, and especially in order to test the FHIR generation, I would recommend to do this. Now I have some testing products here. Those are actually real products that have just been moved to my test organization. You can see there are a lot of cups. Those are European Union. Those are centrally authorized ones. But there is some stuff from Slovenia, from Austria, Romania, Germany. So if I pick, I don't know, let's pick a German product. And I click on review selection. And then I can still see my product. Now, as we are loading products in here and we're still developing this will not always perform very well. We are working on the performance. We're working still on some features because we still have some time until the 5th of September where we actually go into the real UAT. So sometimes you have to refresh the page if it doesn't work, but this one does. It just takes a while. Until we did the performance optimization, we click on save, and it might be that, so depending if this is a national product, we can just save it. If it's an MRP product, you would have to type in an MRP number, but this is fine. There are 2 packages underneath, which is good to know. What I can then do is I can add it. I can already export now. I have my product. But if I do a FHIR export now, there is not much information in it. So I would most likely want to add a scope and maybe want to add some present and proposed information so that you have it. So depending on what you want to actually import in your system, and think about this, because you don't have to import everything. Just pick some data that your business needs and then fill in this data in the form. So you get it in your FHIR export and you see where it comes to, where the path is. So we can test a little bit. And then in the end, it's a pretty straightforward system. It tells you what you need to fill in. You don't have to actually understand it, but if you do know the PDF, you will recognize many of these things. It also tells you what to do. In this case, telling me a wrong thing. Let's take 1B maybe. All the documentations. Save this. All right, and it added the scope. I could go to propose changes and add present and proposed there. I will just quickly show you how this works, but I don't want to use too much time on using the system. I believe you're all IT knowledgeable. Some of you already have also joined the system demos where we present how these work. We have quite a lot of YouTube videos that show you some information on how to do this. So if you cannot, well, we do have the recording here today as well that we will share, so you can look at this again if you want more information. Here you would just select your scope, then select your medicinal product, and then select the packages that you want to export. We will include the present and proposed fields here in a future story, but for now, so here are the packages right at the bottom. If you have added, so you could also change this if you don't want to have unstructured information. We have also implemented a device, the device section. So see where's device, here medical device. So you can change the information that needs to be given from free text to a medical device if you want to test the import for that. It's the only, apart from ATC code and medical device, we haven't implemented any IDMP fields. They are going to get added next year. So for now, we will just release a version with the free text, medical device, and ATC code. And I can save this. And depending on what I select up there, I can then go to a screen to either enter my free text present and proposed or enter a structured device screen that lets me actually create IDMP compliant devices. Where this would happen right now, this is a little bit hidden, so we're gonna move this up. It's here, view and change present and proposed. And this is where you can either select something from OMS or you add some free text by clicking add here. And for now, I will add, my present is 7, my proposed is 8.
Noel, may I interrupt you while you are typing in here examples? I think it's now essential to mention that this is the first release of the variation form. Once PMS will have structured data, this section in the form will change to a much more IDMP structured version. But as long as we cannot retrieve IDMP structured data from PMS, we still have this free text propose and present section in here. So yes, please be aware within next year, depending on, let's say, PMS maturity, this section will change. And maybe, Noel, perhaps later you can say what this will have an impact on the FHIR message.
So what will not, actually this section as it is will stay. We will just add stuff.
Oh yes,
so
correct.
If you develop against this is already effort that is well used. There will always be free text changes in a variation because there are B and C variations that don't have IDMP data. They will always be in free text. They will always be unstructured. But those that actually have data fields in IDMP, we're going to implement one after the other, but we will release all of this hopefully somewhere end of next year. And then the full product can be entered here, meaning the full product will also be in FHIR with all the changes that we have. So for now, I recommend at least exporting the present and the proposed free text. If you want to already look at how to export IDMP fields, you can try an export device. So this is doing validation. It says errors were found. Do you still want to export? Because we don't want applicants to export if there are validation errors. You can do it nevertheless. This will now fail validation. This doesn't matter. It will still give me a data fetch. It will export this. So what it did now, it created the PDF and the FHIR XML. You have a huge download button here that you can click on, and it will download a PDF file. Now, this PDF file, you can open it. We still have some debug information at the start, just to help you during development. This, of course, will go away in the live version, but it is quite useful. So everything that is mapped at the moment is yellow. If you look at the PDF export, gonna see, I've put in some, so the application information is filled in. It already generated single variation type 1b and most of these things and human, etc. So it has the EMA holder because this is information it knows from the logged in user. Now it has the product in here at least the main fields, and it has the scope in here. And we are looking for my present and proposed. I've just put in 7 to 8. And my precise scope was test 01, test 02. So we see it in the PDF. And if you click on the attachments on your left-hand side of the PDF, you can see there is an EF XML attached to it. So if you open that one with an XML viewer, with Notepad++, with whatever you want, you will already get, you will no longer get the DES, but you will get the FHIR message. Now this FHIR message has exactly what you have in the PDF and what you have put in your application. Meaning if I search here for 8, we can see we have created a provenance. A provenance stands for a change. So in FHIR, we use a provenance resource to indicate there was a change. And it gives me we're using some extensions. This one is called Unstructured Current Value and Unstructured Proposed Value. We're doing this in HTML. So this is encoded, and it gives you the HTML properties and then what it was that was the actual value. Same if you look for test 01 was the other thing that I wrote. This one is, we can see in a different area of the XML, although the application has them right along, they are completely different concepts in XML, how it is coded. So if I look up, where are we? We are actually very difficult to find. So in this case, what I will do is I will use a little program that Rick developed, which is very useful. So thank you, Rick. Rick, if it is okay, I would ask you, if you want to, you can post a link to this program in the chat so NCAs can use it as well. What you do, it's a site where you post an XML document, if it is well formed. Let's see that it is. Let's maybe open this one up in proper XML and not in the in a web browser. So yeah, I'm gonna save this one. Yeah, okay, Rick has just posted a link. This link will give you a screen where you post a FHIR message, and it gives you an HTML representation. This is particularly useful when you do any kind of development. And a lot of people do this at the moment. Andre has done a similar thing. So if you want, you can develop this by yourself, or you can just use the one that we have. So this is my, save this to the desktop, EF XML. And then opening this with Notepad. Let's copy paste this into the browser. Let's see, hopefully this works. Yes, brilliant. So what it does is it shows you this more or less how to read. I know we're all developers here. You can all read XML. But if you are lazy, or if you want to get an overview, because finding stuff here is a bit tricky sometimes, just to get an overview, maybe look at the structure, because this one is hierarchical. And we know that FHIR is not. FHIR has everything on the same level and uses links to link one thing to another. This HTML representation realizes that, and if, for example, one task links to a different task, it will show them hierarchical. And this makes things very easy to use. So what we do here is our variation is a task, and each scope is another task. And if we look at now our test 01, we can see that this actually belongs to the task that is the main task. So in here, it has attributes like code, variation type 1B, focus is the product list, and then we have a lot of inputs. So we're using here key value pairs that give you, for example, you know, it's a procedure type, it's a domain, it's a type of application. So our type, our key is an RMS list. It tells you what kind of attribute it is, and our value is whatever allows here. So sometimes the value is again an RMS list, sometimes it's a Boolean, sometimes it's HTML. So a value can be all sorts of things. In this case, it is test01 is an HTML. It also tells you what kind of encoding. So this is base 64, and it's truncated. Now, this FHIR message contains a lot of other information that we didn't put in, but it already knows, like the applicant. So who is the MEH? It fills in the log ID. So we're using OMS here for the organization. At the moment, we are also filling in the entire medicinal product. So if you do an export, and even though you haven't changed anything on the product, we are including the entire product. We're currently debating if this is a wise thing to do. We have still developed this. So we are trying to figure out if we should only include what has changed from the product or if we should include the entire product. Nevertheless, what we will always have at the end is a provenance. And the provenance is there are many of them. And the provenance, there will be one for every change. And that's quite a lot of provenances at some point, but it could be that, well, those at least will tell you exactly what is being changed. In this case, it says we are changing a free text from 7. So old data was 7 and new data is 8. So this is kind of the brilliant thing. It's a lot of work to do this, to realize what is different between the latest product and this product. For free text, it's easy, but we're doing these provenances also for any kind of product change. So we're going through the product as it is in PMS. We're comparing it to what the applicant puts in. Louis is actually doing this. He's here on the call. And we will then create a provenance for each of those changes. So you don't have to do the comparison yourself. This is luxury. We thought of if we should do this, and we thought, well, we don't want 27 member states to do the XML comparison between products. We are going to try to do this already attached to the FHIR XML. This will save, I don't know, hopefully millions of development work throughout Europe for every NCA. Anybody who wants to do this, because everybody needs it. You want to know what is changing. And this is where you can find it. Now, there is more information in here. And in order to find your way around, you can either look at the HTML, or the other thing you can do is you can look at a conceptual model. And this is something I did this is the same thing, just as an ER diagram. And we will zoom in here a little bit. And I will explain how to read it. This is available at this link. It's published at the eSubmissions website. And we will start at the task. So we start at the middle. We have seen the task contains a lot of information. It contains the code, identifiers, and many attributes. This is a conceptual model. It will only show entities and the first couple of attributes. For the full list of attributes, I will show you in a little bit later an Excel sheet where all of them are actually in there. So, but first of all, you need to understand where do you find what you need. So you could look at the HTML, you could look at the Excel sheet, ask business, okay, what are the attributes they want to have, they want to see in their system, and then you can see what are the entities that are available. So a task is our variation procedure. It will be the variation, it can be a renewal, it can be an MEA form. It will tell you what it is. So this one will be of type variation type 2, so it has a code. And each scope that we have, so you can have many scopes in your variation, and they will all have a task with some key value pairs that have the documentation and the conditions. This is usually also something your regulators want to see, meaning this is information you most likely want to export. The other bit that you want to see is the provenance. This gives you your present and your proposed data. This can be an OMS link, so a log ID. It can be HTML, it can be so all of the things that we've seen before. Or it can be a structure change, meaning a provenance for product change. So we have two types of provenances, well, many types, but the main ones that you're interested in are the ones for structure change and unstructured change. The structure change, at the moment, we only have them for device and ATC code, will give you present data, which is old value, and it can be text, it can be whatever data we have. So this is what was there before, and it has the proposed data, which is a pointer to the element or to the resource that was changed. So this one will point to any generic resource. It can point to a medicinal product definition, to an ingredient definition, to a device definition, to a package definition. It will point to the actual resource that is being changed, including the name of the link, actually, to the attribute itself. And that tells you exactly which is the product field that has changed. It will also give you on an attribute level and on a resource level what is happening. So what kind of operation is happening in CRUD. So is it a new one? Is it an update, a delete? So you know what's happening. So we don't omit information in FHIR. So we always send the entire resource, but we do send if this resource is getting created, deleted, or modified. And we do this for attributes as well. Now, this is, I think, the main information. There is other information in here, like who is signing this. We are using provenance in bracket signature for this, because provenance are also used to signing things. And there is one more provenance inside the medicinal product. So don't get confused. Not all provenances give you changes. Some give you signatures. Some give you why the product was created. So there is one more in the product. But these are the ones that you're looking for. So apart from the signatories, we have the MAH itself, which is an organization definition with a log ID, plus also written out, copied from OMS, a readable version of that location. So you have the name and the address in there. Same goes for all contact people. So we have the MAH contact, for example. They also can have an organization, which again is an organization definition with a log ID. All the payment information is in there. I know for us, this is, at least in Austria, it's quite important because this is the main reason why we import stuff. We need this payment information. And in addition to this, now there is additional information. I don't know if you need them, look at it. The Excel sheet will give you a list of it. There is things like changes concerned, background. The background is usually a large text where the applicant gives a lot of information why this variation is happening. This, I believe, is also useful. It's a key value pair inside the task. And linking to that, we have something I don't know if you need, again, optional. Applicants have to put in if there is a parallel variation. So if they apply for two variations at the same time, but in different member states, they have to indicate this now. This was added a couple of months ago. So what we do there is we create a regulated authorization that links to this, well, the input links to the regulated authorization for a marketing authorization for a different product. So this is not the product that is being changed. This is the product. So you will find different medicinal product definitions, different regulated authorization in this FHIR, and the context is important because this one is just linked by this key value pair. So if you extract information just by XPath, you need business logic to see what did you just find. Because if you just XPath the medicinal product definition, you might find the product that is currently being changed in parallel, or the product that is changed inside the variation procedure itself. The product that is changed on the variation procedure has the link to the task via focus. The one that has a parallel variation has the link via the key value per input via the regulated authorization to a medicinal product definition. So it is important to understand this diagram, and also that's why I created it. Now, each product and the products concerned, they also have a regulated authorization, and this is the marketing authorization itself. Or what can also happen is that these products have a either pediatric request or an orphan request. So pediatric, orphan, and even market exclusivity, we model them by doing regulated authorizations of a different type. These will have the type orphan or the type pediatric. And those are applications to be pediatric, to be orphan. So it doesn't mean that the product itself will have an orphan flag. It means they're requesting to get one, meaning there is lots of information which they fill in, and we put that in a regulated authorization object because it is an application to be, and that's why we use the regulated authorization. This one again has a link to a holder, so who is the MAH here, and a link to the regulator that this was requested with. And that is the variation message. So it's not too complex, it's not too much. But if you follow this link and you go to the medicinal product, if you just look at the variation message, this is it. But if you want to import product information as well, this is a whole new model. So product is Idmp, meaning this is not easy. I've done another webinar in the past just to explain this model. This has been recorded, it is online, and you can look at it. I've just added this here as a reference. And you will, if you link from the variation, where you will start is the medicinal product definition. And from there, you can go through the entire product to find whatever information you want. Now, not go into detail here, but I will stop for questions now because I need to take a glass of
There
water.
were some questions in the chat that I tried to answer, so hopefully you agreed to the answers. But I would like to ask you one question. I'm pretty sure most of us are overwhelmed by the information you gave to us now. So what is your practical advice to get into this topic? So is it a good way, for example, like you showed to us, to play around in the EF portal and to create a form with data that you know, export, and then look where the data resides in the XML format, and in parallel look at the conceptual model where you are? Is this could this be a best practice approach, or do you have better ideas how to, let's say, start from the beginner mode?
Starting from so if you start from the very beginner mode, I will actually recommend starting with the Excel sheet, which I will show you next, because this just contains all the possible fields that you have, and then you choose those fields and you focus on those fields. Once you have discussed this with your business and you know what you want to import, you can then go to the portal, fill in these attributes, export, see where they are in XML, look at the HTML, find your way around using the model, understand how this is done, and then you know where they are. This is the first step, or the first few steps for a person that is concerned with data. Now, we have another part here for a person who is concerned with how to get this data out of the XML, which is development. And there are two challenges here, and one is a data challenge and one is a development challenge. One is classic, how do I get information out of a FHIR message? It's not specific for any kind of thing that we do here. This is just FHIR knowledge. You can do a training. There are lots of them. You can do online courses. You can look at YouTube videos. There are tons. or you can just read the FHIR documentation. This is development, but data, there is not much there online. There is this presentation, there is my last presentation. There are some workshops from Andre and colleagues from the PMS side that explain how a product looks like. And that's it.
Thank you. No, so to summarize, a good approach for beginner would be sit together with business, define the fields, or let's say discuss the fields that you would like to import, then go to the EF portal after registration. I did it now in parallel, Noel, yes.
Very
And type in some test data that you can easily find via search, export the FHIR, export the PDF, look at the FHIR message, and then now depending on your technology, and I think now Noel will get into this, how to extract, and if you use XPath or style sheet transformation, and then do the rules to get out the data. Yeah, I think that's could be a good way forward. Thank you.
Right, so I have two more topics. I will touch only briefly because I can see I have talked way longer than I anticipated.
Just one thing. I just see that Harald has raised his hand, so I don't know if he wants to intervene or if it's just if the questions have been answered. Maybe Harald.
Hi. Well, thank you very much. What you have done here, it's amazing, and also the correction. So the function of having the data checked of the previous version. It's only an idea. Perhaps someone can volunteer. What Georg has asked about how to start. Perhaps it's perfect. I know we all don't have resources, that a short starter package, what is needed, and so, and all the links are collected, because I think it might be also necessary that you get Spore access at EMA, perhaps also for the API to make that work, that you don't need to export these Excel lists for RMS and so on, and perhaps that you also have some insights more in OMS. I don't know. So only an idea to have some sort of packages, and yes, easy startup package might be helpful for all.
Yeah, Harald, I will take this in our work package meetings. And I think that's a good idea, and I think it's needed. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for all the work.
Thanks, Harald. All right, just a possibility to start with, which I think is useful, is an Excel sheet that I have published on the website. Again, here's the link. This is all to be found on the eSubmissions website. I have a bit of a disclaimer and an explanation at the start. It has two tabs, one for variation and one for medicinal products. And it is a list of all possible fields that you could have with first of all, a hierarchy, starting with level 1 to level 6. It has the name of the field as it is known from the web UI. Mostly I try to keep the names from the PDF. So you can ask your business and they should actually know what this is about. There is a type of the field, the cardinality, if it's mandatory or read-only or optional or dependent. The RMS list to be used, so the ID of the list, the name of the list, and then the mapping to the FHIR itself. This should be mostly finalized. This is like 95%, hopefully. We are still testing. So if we find bugs, we sometimes update this. So if this really shouldn't change, but it can happen. So Louis and Rick are working on this, but we are at the very end. So I would recommend for you to already start looking at where this is. Sometimes these things have like resource name is task, dot contained would be a backbone element, and then the element could be, in this case, another task, which is referenced by part of, with a coding of this type of system and so on. So FHIR mappings is not as straightforward where just you have an XPath, but if this is a little bit difficult to understand, there is just the normal FHIR documentation that I really recommend looking at. So we are using FHIR at the version 4.6. If you look at the FHIR history, the current live version does not interest us. The 5.0 interests us very much, but it is not finished. So it is going to be finished next year. So we are on the last one before that, 4.6. And if you click on that one and you go to resource types, you will find on the very bottom right all the resources that we are using. Apart from task, you can just search from task and you will find it. Or provenance, it's up there. But if you look at, yeah, in this case, let's take the task. You can click on it. It's an open website, and you can look at for either the UML definition of it, if you are UML friendly, or just the structure. And you can see, all right, this is mapping to task.contained. So there should be a contained, and you can find, okay, this is in as one of the main elements, can have an ID, etc. It's a contained. But you could also see, okay, I'm looking for input or, oh, sorry, I clicked too much. So let's see, where is my input? Scroll down. Okay, here I see input is a backbone element, meaning it's a one-to-many relation with two attributes of type and of value. And I can see, okay, my type is a codable concept. So in order to read all of this, you have to get familiar with FHIR. I can't give you a training for this one. I do hope either you get one of the official trainings or you read documentation, but this will be necessary to know. It's a new standard that is emerging. It is still a little bit unstable, at least in our area. It was there for a long time for hospitals, but for medicinal products, it's becoming the standard worldwide. So it is worth learning this. But you can click on codable concept to see what it is. And if you know any kind of programming language, you see, all right, this has either a string or coding. Coding is not a simple type. So again, you can click on it until you have reached all the simple types. You see, okay, a coding can be a URI, can be a string, can be a code, can be a Boolean. If you see, okay, code, I don't know, is this a simple type or not? You click on it and you see what a code is. So just drill down the website together with this Excel sheet. See, these are the attributes that you need. And if you see, okay, this is the one I need, this is the mapping. I have shown many different ways of going to this. When you go to the medicinal product, it's also there. It's colored in based on the area of the product. So it's easier to find. Again, RMS list link, FHIR resource link, section name, and for the product, I have even included, or I think this is from our last project, where it is today. So this is the current XML. So if you already have a system exporting, and you just want to use a new one, you can see, all right, this was my last XPath, and this is where it is now. So you can do an old system to new system mapping. So this should help. Sometimes we publish updates to this Excel, but not too many because we are very close to go live. All right, that's it from a data perspective. Now, extracting information, maybe if there are any questions, please just raise your hand and I will stop there. This would be a good time. If not, I will just bring you briefly to data for another 5 minutes or so, and then I will just ask around, first of all, who is doing a development such as this, who wants to import this, and if you want to share any information or any best practices or anything that you've learned or have any questions for us, I will give you the floor. So there are many ways to get information from a FHIR message, and it is standardized. So this is not particular to EMA, not particular to medicines. This is just FHIR. Now, I will bring you two ways because these are the two ways that we are using. Today we're using XPath, which is a quite easy thing. You just XPath your attributes. You get quite a lot of them, and with FHIR probably even more. So you need some logic to filter those to see which is the exact attribute that you want. You get one specific one, and then you need to map it. Now, I know Spain, for example, is using ETL to map this because they have a lot of expertise in ETL. You can use AutoMapper. You can do this mapping manually as you want. And then it will go somehow to whatever ORM you're using and mapping it to your local database. So I'm assuming everybody has a database, either a procedural system or a product system or something. And this would be one option. The other one would be, and something I think we should recommend here, is using a standard library from FHIR. Now, this is the nice thing of going proprietary Adobe. There was no option with Adobe on doing a proper an export. You had to do kind of XPath or XSLT or something to get the attribute that you need. Now, as we're using an actual standard, something that is being developed worldwide, everybody uses this, even Apple, Microsoft. So the iPhone will be able to read FHIR, is already able to read this. And so there are libraries out there. There are even libraries for versions that are not live yet. So 4.6 even has a library. So you can use this to create data objects, meaning in whatever programming language you are, you don't have to use the C# or Java. You can use all sorts of things, but you will get some object. Well, most languages have objects where you can query your attributes. You can use easier logic to drill down, follow your objects, see, select by type, and then actually find the attribute that you want. As I've shown before, there are lots of marketing authorizations, lots of regulated authorizations. If you have an attribute, if you have an object, you can just type and then filter by this. If you're using XPath, you need a lot of business logic to find also from the same object your type attribute. You will filter by type, so it gets a bit more complex. If you only want like 3, 4, 5 attributes, I think I would recommend XPath. Maybe it's not worth doing objects, but if you want more, I personally would recommend using a library. But then again, this is completely up to everyone. I tried to do a meeting before that where we just within our own team try to see, okay, how does Spain do it? Does it? How does Microsoft does it? Well, our Microsoft developer, how is HL7 expert doing it? And we already found 3 ways of doing this. So I would actually like to open the floor. If you have any way of extracting this information, or if you want to use the libraries, if you see any problem in using those. I know there is an issue with versioning, there always is. And in the past, we have used a little bit of XSLT to trim down the message, so versioning is not that big of an impact. But in the future, I don't know, I haven't actually talked to our Austrian developers yet on how they will do it. I will do so. They're even here, I believe. So we will get into contact as well, because I'm really just working international at the moment. If we can use libraries, if there are any issues. Because if there are changes there in the libraries, they will get updated by the open source communities that create those. If we do changes from a data perspective that are not FHIR changes, but just switching to a different mapping, we either use an existing field or we create extensions. Extension is a generic thing that you can add to any resource and say, okay, this is not there. I'm running this maybe through the process of getting it into the standard of HL7. For now, I'm just creating an extension and putting the attribute there. And any library can read extensions. That's also possible. So this should be fine. Now, I've provided quite a lot of links here, where first of all, the directory of the different FHIR versions and the documentation of FHIR. It's quite important. Second, all of the open source implementations. So the main ones for us would be, if it's Java, we would use Happy. If it's .NET, most likely you will use Firelight. But there are quite a lot of other libraries for nearly every programming language, and this is a link that lists a lot. So you can have a Spark.NET server. You can, for Java, you can use Smart on FHIR. There is Delphi, Pascal, R, Ruby, Python, Swift, PHP, an IBM FHIR server, Flutter, JavaScript. So go through this. You will find there are other open source implementations. Use the one that best suits you. The other link that I wanted to show is from the FHIR webpage itself, which is the download link I've posted here. This link, first, it will just explain that you can do this in XML and JSON, but a little bit beneath it, there are implementation tools. Very useful is the Validator Tool. So you can validate the message in your programming language. Right now, you can only validate the structure itself. So it is a valid XML message with a valid FHIR XML message. We do not yet have a profile for this. Once we have a profile as well and we publish it, you can even validate the data. This is something we are aiming for next year, sorry. It will take some time to do this. And then the validator can also validate the data itself. There are some reference implementations for the programming languages that you can look at, so you can get a start. And this is it, really. So I think I've talked more than enough. I see Harold has his hand raised, so please, Harold, relieve me a little bit.
Noel, thank you very much. A very perfect presentation, and how much work you have put in also is what you have shown just in Confluence. Amazing. Thank you so much. My questions are a little bit, I stepped out a little bit from this project, so sorry for this question. So the first question is, notices NTA groups, the notices to applicants group. How is the future process of changing? Is this group still engaged, or will this then be based on EMA, NCA more, and the commission group is out? This is my first question.
Yeah, let me just answer this right away. For veterinary, NTA is already out. So veterinary EMA does what they feel suits the form. For the human PDF, we still have the NTA group there who tells us what should go there. But we have had one meeting now with NTA, and where we discussed this with the commission. And they gave us a little bit of wiggle room, which means their main concern is the regulators from NCAs need to understand the PDF. If they look at the PDF, they need to find the information, and it needs to be not too different from what is there today, but it doesn't have to be the exact same thing. So the process that they recommended us now, that it goes a little bit faster, is if we want to change something, we should run it by CMDH. If CMDH thinks this is okay for regulators, then NTA will not object. Now, for the future, EMA is engaging with NTA to see if the change process can be improved. We have Christina Pepato here, who is our change manager from the project, and she is working on this as well. So I have to thank the team here that we have behind. It's quite a lot of brilliant people, and they're also trying to engage with NTA here to see that this goes faster.
Oh, these are perfect news that CMDH is in, as CMDH is well, HMA group. So I'm very positive on that we can make it work. Thank you very much on this. The next question is, I have already asked, and you have just talked about the extensions. you use very less extensions. This would be good because for extensions we have seen for the electronic product, the EP project, electronic product information project, that you can put anything under extensions. This will, yes, contradict it with the FHIR concept. So I'm very happy what was told in the chat, that you use less extensions.
We try to. So sometimes we have to, unfortunately. The things that we believe are necessary for everybody, we have put them into FHIR, and Rick is our connection there to HL7, and whatever we think is good for other people to have, Rick has actually brought in there, and a lot of it has made it into the actual version 4.6, into 5.0. So this group here has given a lot of input to the actual standard development, which is brilliant. What is really very much specific to variations, we can't ask a whole standard group to adopt. And this is where we have to use extensions. They are documented only in the Excel sheet for now. Once we have a profile, they will be documented in XML as well.
Okay. The next, thank you very much. So the next comment is only, well, more or less in internal. This means from NCA perspective, if you have human and vet in one NCA, you have three things. You have to take care of the old electronic application forms as they run for DCP, MRP or national procedures still ongoing. You have the new ones with what you have just said, that they will be massively extended. This is perfect about structured data next year. What will depend on also the development of the implementation guide for ISO Idmp. And we have vet, the old EIFs, and the new DADI. So this is what I foresee as a little bit work to do. Or what do you think here?
The good thing there is it is one team who does the FHIR messages. It is Andre, Rick, and me, and we are trying to keep them together, that even vet and human doesn't run too much apart. It is not an easy task. I don't know if Andre, you want to say something to this. I know I've seen you're here as well. We will engage more with vet after we've done the AMA form, because that is constantly changing at the moment. And once even we have the vet form and we export vet FHIR messages, I believe we have another opportunity to come closer together if they are deviating, because they don't need to be IDMP compliant, but it would be good if at least they go into that direction.
Thank you. The next question, sorry that I put one question after the other.
Oh, no, Harald, but just before you raise your next question, dear colleagues, maybe you have seen Luke has introduced a form into the chat with a survey if we should make and organize a follow-up session. Please click yes or no. And if yes, please submit a topic that you would like to hear in a potential next meeting. Back to you, Harald, sorry.
No, perfect. And thank you so much for using all these tools and helping us, giving feedback to you. Thank you very much. So one of the main things with the electronic application form was, where I had many discussions, you know, Georg, also with the Spanish colleagues, is the number of changes they have done in the schema and this old horrible Adobe XFR implementation. So this was really challenging for us, that okay, you have it as the next topic, how we implement import of EIF, that we have mostly stopped that. But concerning the FHIR here, how many structural changes do you expect here? Sorry, this is a stupid question, Georg, I know, because
no, it's a very relevant question for NCA IT directors. How much resources do we need to keep the import, let's say, working? It's a very good question. Yeah. Noel, are you able to give some advice?
Well, the thing I can say, and I have to admit, is FHIR is going to version 5.0 next year. This is a very it's a good version. We all try to go there, and we hope once this is released, there will be fewer FHIR changes and the things that we need are in there. Until then, unfortunately, I know from 4.6 to 5.0 there are changes. So there will be some effort that you have to do. Also on Medistone product, these resources, they are very young. So I do expect some changes, but after a while, this will get stable. And we even decouple versioning process of the PDF and the XML, meaning you do not always have a new XML version when you have a new PDF version, if not necessary. So we are aware of it, and at the start, it's going to cost more resources, and then it will flatten out, and it will be fewer and fewer.
To add what Noel said, and we didn't have this in the slides, but please, when you do the architecture and let's say your technical concept, please be aware that we will have transition periods, so that we have the situation that 1, 2, or 3 versions are in parallel at the same time. We already have this today. For example, in Austria, we can cover 2 versions. I think in Spain the same, because there will be always transitions when we move from one version to the other. So please make sure that your system is able to import different versions.
All right.
Thank you.
I would take Pascal's question next.
No. One last question, please. I think this is an important one. What do you do with the validators, with the e-validators that are doing the ECD validation? Are the companies engaged? Are they know what to change for their validation tools?
I can take this, Noel. So currently there is no change in the validation procedure. So the e-validator from different tools, they accept PDFs, but it's a good point. We need to check if, because XML is attached to the PDF, if this causes a problem. That's a very good point. Maybe you can also get in contact with your vendor. But in principle, no changes to the validators are expected, and we are in the ECD file format specifications.
Thank you. So as we are moving to the end, I would take Pascal's question in a second. But if I may ask you, because it would interest me very much, if you are planning to import or developing this, maybe can you just leave in the chat a message of your country or your NCA, so we know if we want to engage people or if you want to be engaged even with more information, we know who is doing this. Also, it's good for us if we know a lot of NCAs do this. We are investing more time, of course. If we know it's only 5 NCAs, yes, we will still do this, of course. But the more I think NCAs profit from the work that we do, the more resources we can spend on making this better. Thank you. Pascal, please. You are muted though.
Thank you. So thank you very much. Very quick one. You just said, okay, version 5.0 will be more stable. What is the argument for us to start now, therefore? Do you recommend to start now? Why? Because only the 5.0 will be more stable. That's an argument I have to fight to get the resource to do things which I will have to redo next year. Could you comment on that? Yeah. Also, the comment of Georg saying, yes, but don't forget that you have to be backward compatible with the previous version. So please elaborate just quickly on that point. It will help me for the resource requests.
Yes. So it depends if you already have a system importing or if you're developing this completely new. If you're developing this completely new, just reading and importing the message is actually just a small part of it. You do have to extract the XML from the PDF, which is a bit of code. You probably want to create a workflow for somebody if there is a problem, and then see where in your business this goes, so and integrate with your systems, etc. Now, extracting the information and putting it in your database, what I would recommend doing now is the variation procedural information. So the free text present and proposed. This is something we have created in our structure, this will most likely not change. Same for whatever is in the task, the variation basic procedure information. Now, for product information is the thing I guess will change. Regulated authorizations will change. Manufacturers will change. Although these things are still already in the FHIR message, if you don't want to spend too many resources, do not import them yet. Do this once it's stable. But you can already create a procedure. You can fill in the most important information and do the president proposed. I think that's very valuable for business.
Yeah, I support Noel's comment here. A lot of things you need to do is, let's say, a framework to enable this feature at all in your system. And this will stay the same regardless which FHIR version there will be. So it's good to start, maybe small, but the framework is needed, and small with the FHIR extract like Noel explained here. We need to close, Noel, now. I'm so sorry. There's Pascal, is this a legacy? No, it's a new one.
No, it's not. I just thank you very much for your answer. I switch off my hands, and once again, it was really helpful. Thank you very much for your support and your dedication, both of you, Noel, and all the team. It's really helpful what you do here.
Yeah. So
Right.
all the team, and so many people working on this. It's amazing. Noel, we need to stop and close on time because people now had a good leisure time. Now they need to go back to work. You have a different work now, so I really hope that you enjoy the next month. Noel will not be in the office, so if there are any questions, I think drop a message to myself, and hopefully I can answer. Or please be patient until Noel returns in September.
We still have Rick and Louis here. Please,
Yes,
Georg, please, if you
I can forward.
The experts are here as well.
Yeah. Brilliant. Luke, you made a survey about follow-up workshop. Can you give us a short status about the outcome of that?
Yeah, sure, Georg. So we have 16 people who answered, so we could have a bit more, but obviously there is 81% of the people who answered who really want to have one, and obviously the idea to have a starter package discussed and proposed is appealing, as that's the topic which comes on the forefront. And we have two other topics which have been proposed: package and data from FHIR, as you can read in the 5 responses that have been provided. But you still have time to answer that survey. So if you want to nuance or to add topics, please do so. Otherwise, as you just said, Georg, I think you will be most happy to receive a private message related to one specific area of interest that you would like to be developed.
Okay, thank you. So we will discuss this to organize another meeting in our consortium meeting in September. And I think it's a good idea, and maybe we can really have a, let's say, a lean starter package for ramping up this complex topic. But it's not so complex, so don't be afraid. Brilliant. We are 2 minutes too late. I'm sorry for this. Noel, thanks again. All the team, thanks a lot for the collaboration and cooperation and the effort in the past and the motivation for the future. We see each other after the summer break. Have a good time. Keep safe and healthy. And thanks for your interest again. And bye-bye.